was never known to mince words, but it was minced and spat out with great humour. However, the truth nearly always hit home, and it hit home hard. A genius playwright, a magnificent actor, and a bona fide director, Feroze Kamardeen has been in Sri Lankan theatre for 3 decades or more. With over 40 plays under his belt, he came back in full force with a one-man show which he wrote and acted, Grow Up Nana, in that 2-hour monologue for which he got a well-deserved standing ovation. I, for one, was truly honoured to have this amazing man with us in the studio today, immediately after his sellout shows. Feroze, welcome.
Thank you.
2 hours without a break. What were the repercussions on the voice?
Yeah, as you can hear, it was quite brutal.
So, what made you look at your community at this point?
I started writing this maybe about 2 years ago, and I wanted to kind of do a piece that was essentially sort of focusing on a community. And obviously, I have a lot of credibility being a Sri Lankan Muslim myself to write something about my community. So that's kind of the impetus. And for me, why at this point? Well, there's no kind of timing in the macro environment that triggered it. Simply, the script was ready. Actually, the script was ready sometime maybe in April this year. We held it back only because of Julius Caesar. So we decided, we'd already done the dates and all that jazz, and had that infamous conversation with my team. It was quite a fascinating conversation we had about whether I would do it. And I knew the reasons why a lot of them made it very difficult. They didn't just give it to me on a platter. Just because I wrote the play and said I wanted to do it, I didn't just get the chance to do it. I had to go through almost like an incredibly tough audition process before they determined that I was, sort of worthy enough to take the stage. Yeah.
So you looked at your community very deep, very wide. What were the revelations, or some of the revelations you came across when you were doing your research?
Okay, so one of the ones, and all the Muslims kind of really agreed with me, and it was so nice to see. And I have to say, I was blessed with 3 incredible audiences, right? Who are kind of literally at no point as a performer did I have to work to get their attention. They were so focused on what I was saying. So one of the things, I know it sounds very trivial, but one of the things I found out was, like, I called lots of my friends, and I said, do you have a list of people whom you send Watlapam to? They said, yes, we do. And some of them have a list of people whom they send Watlapam and Biryani, right? And on Eid day, usually. So it's the day of Eid ul-Fitr, Ramadan's. Then I asked them, okay, can you tell me how many Muslims are on that list? And they all said, Muslim? No, we don't have Muslims. It's only for non-Muslim friends, no matter. Right? So then I'm going like, my list doesn't have. Nobody has a list. I could still not find anyone who had a list. And then I realized, oh my gosh, that's so true. It must be that, right? It's something that we essentially share only with family and with the non-Muslims. Yeah, it's...
So you brought up Gaza. That was a very emotional point. But what's different about Gaza to what has been happening around the world?
Gaza is, the Russian-Ukraine war was provoked. Okay, it was definitely provoked. And it is a geopolitical struggle that is going between Russia and NATO. Okay? And Ukraine, whatever Russia does in Ukraine, has been condemned. It has been condemned. The international community has, called out Vladimir Putin, called out this thing. In Gaza, I am not siding with the Hamas at all. I think the Hamas are terrorists and they don't know this thing. And to be very honest with you, I know lots of people say that the Gazans elected Hamas. Yeah, the Gazans elected Hamas. In 2006, when the last election for Gaza was held, 51% of Gaza's population are children, which means 51% of Gaza's population haven't voted for Hamas because they haven't had elections for 17 years, right? So to say that Hamas represents the people of Gaza is as bad as saying that the LTTE represented the Tamil people. No, they didn't, okay? And it is the brutality of what is happening in Gaza, the deliberate targeting of refugee shelters, killing children, wiping out entire families, You know how difficult it is to wipe out an entire Muslim family? We have so many kids. We have so many cousins and second cousins because we consider a lot of people family. Our families are usually extended. We don't call only our siblings family. Our cousins are family, second cousins are family, second cousin 16 times removed the family, right? I mean, if you look at the audience that was there at the Lionel event, I guarantee you, any Muslim person there, if that person and I had a conversation with two family elders present, we'd find a connection. We'd find it. So we're very large families. So can you imagine in Gaza, they're wiping out entire families. That like the family doesn't exist anymore. It's the brutality of what is happening. It is the double-faced response of the United Nations, the US, the West, the hypocrisy has been completely exposed here. And that is what's really compelling about Gaza. Because I'm telling you, 100 years from now, they'll be apologizing for Gaza the way they are apologizing for every other atrocity. Like the way they apologize for Vietnam, like the way they apologize for slavery, like the way they will apologize. At some point, that apology will come, but it will come 100 years down the line.
Did you at any given point skirt around the issue of Islamophobia?
There is obviously, when a Muslim performer comes on stage, that is the sort of expectation or the par for the course. Just like if a female stand-up comes on stage, a female performer, you expect her to do some good old-fashioned men bashing, right? You expect to do that, right? My husband is this, my boyfriend likes this, whatever. The way I see it is, Islamophobia can exist. Any phobia can exist because we know very little about it, okay? We stay away from it because it's a phobia, because we're scared of it. So we know very little about it. We don't know how those things happen or these things. So because it's a phobia, we don't really want to find out anything about it. And I think it gets fed on by the fact that people don't know, right? Like, for example, if I said Muslims don't like cremation or Muslims don't cremate, that's the soundbite that media wants, right? And that's the soundbite that they'll take. Oh, Muslims don't want cremation. Oh, in this time of COVID-19, Muslims don't want cremation. Oh, they can't cremate. Oh, they want to be special. Or they want to bury it. The rest of the world is cremating their. But in this show, alhamdulillah, I was fortunate enough to have an audience who was patient enough to hear me out. That's important. Okay, that's really important because it's not about being at the being in that seat. It's about hearing me out. And that's a big difference, Harvey. Because you can sit in that seat and you can say, no, whatever the hell you say, I'm still going to be that. Okay? Or you can say, no, I'm just going to at least hear you out. Okay? I'm going to hear you out. I'm going to see hear what you have to say and whether you are logical and you make sense. And that's what all three audiences, they gave me that luxury, right? So I was able to explain to them. But when I explained to them without that 10-second sound bite, and after the explanation, when I say, now everyone knows why it is so, then it's now Muslims don't cremate is, yeah, they don't cremate. Because you know why? I know why, right? So for me, at least, that I feel is a way to counter Islamophobia itself, is for people to know a little bit more about who we are, what we do, why we do it, right? So, I mean, even my observation that Muslims are very proud of their non-Muslim family friends. Okay? See, for non-Muslims, that is almost like we cannot even imagine how that would be. Okay? But in our society, there are friends and there are family friends. It's two kinds of people. Friends talk to me. Family friends talk to Siddhi. Okay? Because family friends are comfortable. Because they're family friends. And that is the definition. That is the definition of being a family friend, is that we are friends of the family, but then the most important part of that family then would become the wife. So
Given that this was a very personal story, was there anything that was too close to home, sensitive?
Oh my goodness! So it's so a lot of this piece was very very personal, right? So for example, the whole Vatlapam bit, right? So the whole Vatlapam bit is very personal because obviously we grew up. My mom's Vatlapam is brilliant. Okay, she obviously transferred that to both my sisters. So both my sisters make it. My older sister Faria and the younger one, the professor. Of course, now the younger one is like the exclusive. She's like the custodian. She's brilliant at it. She makes it's fabulous. But my mother-in-law was a brilliant cook, and obviously they lived with us. And I loved everything she cooked. I mean, she's a fabulous cook, not just a great cook. She was a fabulous cook and very generous, obviously, with the exception of a vatlapam. Okay, that's the one thing I didn't like about my mother-in-law's this thing. Not because it was bad, it was great because my wife likes it, Ida loves it, and all her family loves it. But for me, my mother's vatlapam and now extension my sister's vatlapam, Nazi's one, is the gold standard, right? So my mother-in-law passed away 2 years ago. So last year actually, sorry. When she passed away, it was I who asked those three questions. What time, which burial ground, and what do we serve for lunch or dinner? And I still remember, Ida turned to me and said, she said, now is not the time to think about food. And I said, if anything, your mother was known for being A, an incredible cook, and B, incredibly generous. Do you think on her funeral day that we will serve anything less than great food? Right? And then when I said that, she said yes. And then from there onwards, you know, everything gets done like clockwork.
What did you want that audience to take away from Grow Up Now?
I wanted the non-Muslims to leave the auditorium feeling a little bit better about themselves and feeling like I know Muslims a little bit better, at least a little bit better. Okay, if not, I mean, I didn't possibly cover everything that our faith, you know, is about and our customs and all that, but at least a little bit. Now at least people know a little bit about what we do at funerals, what we are supposed to do at weddings, and what we actually end up doing. Okay, weddings are actually quite, you know, not these things, and I kind of framed everything in the whole, you know, the display of wealth sort of angle, because all of us can identify with that. Sabi. We've all been to weddings, Muslims and non-Muslim weddings, where we've gone like, oh my gosh, why do they have to spend so much money? They could have done this, you know, you didn't have to do, you know, this kind of thing. So I kind of framed everything in the context of that, but I was able to, you know, sort of talk about those issues that we really wanted to highlight.
If you were to look back at all the plays that you have written and directed, most of them controversial, of course, what has been the most rewarding for you?
Well, I have to say it has to be this one, without a doubt. It was rewarding in so many senses. In the sense, it's kind of in fact, Mr. Did asked me, he said, it feels like you've crossed off an item on the bucket list, and I said, for sure. You know, for sure, that's what this felt like. It's kind of, you know, number one, I was directed by Sasha and Siraj, both whom I have directed myself. It was tough because I've always been in a position of control, but I had to cede control of the artistic direction of the play to Sasha and Siraj, and just take on the role of performer. So it was kind of a, you know, a tough one, but I think we managed to, you know, do it well.
So you're going to hopefully have a rerun of this.
Actually, my producers are at the moment talking about it, so yeah. So they are.
And so after that, what's up your sleeve?
Not sure. So I'm getting back to writing, but yeah. So we're probably thinking of doing like a theatre festival next year, the Noir Theatre Festival, which we used to have. But we're trying to do that with some sort of original plays, because we don't really want to sort of do a theatre festival based on these things. So we are trying to figure out what to do there. So the theatre festival is coming up. Sachin's doing a big production, hopefully next year. So there'll be some good theatre around the corner.
So good luck.
Thank you so much.
Grow Up Nana has been a revelation.
Thank you. Thank you.